It seems like a lot of people are forgetting about crypto airdrops, but we're about to head into what could be one of the biggest periods for airdrops in crypto history in 2024. So in today's video, I want to talk about the top 5 airdrops that I am farming that I believe could be some of the most lucrative airdrops in crypto history. Now, yes, you may not see as many airdrop posts on your feed, but that is because a lot of the hype from the Aptos airdrop, the Arbitrum airdrop, which were fairly lucrative and unexpected, have started to diminish. But this is a great opportunity for airdrop farmers because less competitions means net higher rewards for the users that do participate. So let's get into the top 5 airdrops here, 2 of which I have never spoken about on this channel before, but I'm excited to bring them to you. So in front of you is the list of crypto projects that have the biggest VC funding in crypto. Remember that VC funding is one of the biggest prerequisites for sizable airdrops because the more funding, the more ammunition these projects actually have to dish out incentives, given the fact that their market caps likely upon launch are much higher. And this is why I believe, sitting here today, the most lucrative airdrops that you can take part in are the ones with big VC backing. I'm not personally wasting my time with all these little niche airdrops. There are a lot of small airdrops in the market right now that you can go for, but because their slice of the pie is so small, you're not going to receive anything sizable. Whereas your biggest shot at a decent airdrop, and when I say decent, I'm talking about in the thousands of dollars, maybe even in the tens of thousands of dollars. If you're using multiple wallets, it can be in the hundreds of thousands, but at that point it becomes like a full-time job, right? But for most people, you're only going to get a sizable airdrop from focusing on the airdrops that have really big valuation. And that's why the Arbitrum airdrop was so big, and that's why the Aptos airdrop was so big, and even Arkham Intelligence had a massive airdrop because they came in at pretty big FDVs, they had a lot of funding, and that enabled people, even on relatively small percentage bases, to receive very big rewards. So in today's video, I'm focusing on 5 of the big ones. These aren't the little ones, these aren't the niche ones, although there are a couple I'm not hearing many people talk about. The first one is Linear Network. Now, Linear is a consensus-funded project that has a massive valuation. They raised $725 million at a staggering $7 billion valuation. That is absolutely crazy to me. That is a lot of funding, and they're building a behemoth of a layer 2 solution, which is aiming to scale Ethereum with greater throughput and reduce transaction fees. From their projections, their transaction fees on mainnet are predicted to be 15 to 20 times cheaper than the Ethereum mainnet, and it's a network like other L2s that's designed to be EVM equivalent. Now, they recently launched their mainnet, which has already seen an ecosystem of 100 plus protocols and partners develop. As you can see in front of you, there's $27 million worth of TVL and a bunch of protocols already deployed in the ecosystem. I'm going to keep things very, very simple today. When it comes to Linear, the major thing you should be focusing on, similar to the Arbitrum airdrop, is bridging volume, transaction volume, and consistency and frequency. So what I would be doing is basically going through the top applications, adding the blockchain to my MetaMask, of course, using the bridges to bridge money to and from the mainnet, and also interacting with the top protocols in the ecosystem. You can simply go onto DeFi Llama, head over to these protocols yourself, and complete a variety of transactions across their major dApps. They want to see real users interacting with the network, and airdrop farming is not a difficult thing in terms of the actions you need to complete. The difficult part is the consistency, and this is where most people fail. So I highly recommend that if you are serious about airdrop farming, you do something like CC2 Ventures, and you create a sheet which has checklists for each specific application and create a new tab for each specific project that you are farming. The key here is consistency. Make it a part of your daily routine, set time aside to airdrop farming, and actually commit to airdrop farming. If you're not going to take it seriously, you won't get serious results. If you do infrequent transactions every now and then with a little bit of money when you feel like it, and then airdrop hype fades away and then you lose interest, that's not a sustainable strategy to getting an airdrop. If you want to take it seriously, you have to plan seriously, and you have to commit to it. Linear doesn't have a token yet, but they raised a lot of capital, as I explained before, over $700 million, and I would be absolutely shocked if they didn't launch a token, considering investors need some way to recoup their initial investment. And once again, that's why I do like to skew my airdrop farming towards projects with big investment, because it's more likely that a token ends up launching versus a bunch of niche chains. Now, the next one, airdrop number 2, I want to discuss is Base. Now, this is one where a lot of people are saying they aren't going to launch a token, and you would be rightfully thinking that because Coinbase has come out and said they aren't planning on launching a Base token. However, in recent times, we have heard from the founder that they are not ruling out the possibility of a token, and that was a slight switch in their stance since the initial days of launching. So the reason I believe that they came out and said that they're not doing a token is pretty much because Coinbase is already in the midst of a lot of SEC drama, and they don't want to make things worse, and launching a token that could be seen as a security isn't a risk they want to take that could jeopardize their main exchange. But I do believe that one day they're going to find a way to do a token, and I just believe it's a higher risk reward play, betting on the fact that there will be a token and doing some stuff on the network versus completely ignoring it, and then if they do a token, missing out on what could be one of the biggest airdrops in crypto. And that's the thing about airdrop farming, right? It's just a risk reward play. I mean, you don't need a whole lot of capital to get decent results, and you also don't need to spend a whole lot of time or have a whole lot of experience to get decent results. And that's why even if you do miss some airdrops, there were airdrops that I talked about that we missed. For example, I was doing some stuff on Sui, they didn't end up doing a big airdrop. And I talked about Say, and although they did do an airdrop, it didn't end up being massive. But then there were other times with protocols like Arbitrum where we hit it big time. So all the money that we made from Arbitrum paid back in spades, maybe a tiny bit of lost investment through gas fees and maybe missed bridge funds, etc. on these other networks. And to be honest, if you quantify the amount of gas that you spent, it's probably not much, right? Because you can get volume up with stablecoins. Stablecoins obviously retain their value. So the main cost is time and gas, which doesn't end up being that much for the average person. But as I said, you do end up needing to commit. So when it comes to Base, I just think it's positive risk reward to be interacting with the ecosystem. And look, there's been many protocols in the past, like Arbitrum themselves, that said they weren't planning a token that ended up doing a token. So I wouldn't necessarily look into that too much. Now, CC2 does a tweet which pretty much does the best summary I've seen on how to qualify for a Base airdrop. His theory is that Coinbase mainly caters to average non-crypto native users and is focused on onboarding the next wave of normies for mass adoption, and that's their target group. So I'd assume the criteria would be simple enough for that group to qualify, maybe similar to Arbitrum. And there are a few steps that could help you qualify: bridging to Base, using the Stargate bridge as well, using their DEXs and aggregators, so getting up organic trading volume, lending, so you can borrow and lend on Aave on Base, or participating in SocialFi, which Friendtech is the main one that's deployed on Base. And we know that Friendtech also has its own airdrop via their point system that'll eventually be coming as well. So you can kind of kill two birds with one stone by interacting with Friendtech, getting an airdrop on Friendtech, and also getting an airdrop on Base. But I would only recommend doing the Friendtech stuff if you're already holding ETH, because it does require you to essentially like stake ETH on the platform in the form of holding creator keys. So you need to decide whether you're bullish on a Friendtech airdrop. I think it's decent EV actually, and I think for people with large ETH holdings, putting a bit into Friendtech creators and letting it sit there, even if the creators go to zero, they essentially should accrue enough points for holding those creators over time to get a decent airdrop that hopefully pays something like 100% plus APR on your Ethereum. But there are inherent risks with Friendtech. I'm not saying it's completely risk-free. So for the people that don't want to participate in Friendtech, you can use some of the other dApps on Base. And the good thing about Base is that there are so many protocols. It would be stupid for a renowned protocol on other EVM chains not to deploy on Base if it's easy for them to do so. So you pretty much have a pick of the bunch here when it comes to interacting with Base protocols. And look, this is going to be a long bet. Unlike Layer 0 and Starknet, which we could see tokens closer to like Q1 next year, I think Base may not even be till 2025. But if you're in it for the long game and you want to consistently build up transaction volume over time, this is definitely one to add to your checklist. So if you are tracking things on Excel, which I would highly recommend, go create a tab for Base and start farming on Base over the next year or so. I think you could be paid dividends, and if not, it's all valuable experience, right? And airdrop farming is one of the games where you need to shoot to score. If you don't shoot, how can you expect to score? And I think over time, admittedly, the risk reward of airdrop farming goes down and down and down, especially with more regulation coming into the space. I think we're hitting the peak period for airdrops now. One could argue it was in the past with Optimism, Uniswap, and Arbitrum. I would say there is still a major peak to come, which is the point of today's video, with applications like Layer 0, ZK Sync, and 2 that I'm going to discuss later in today's video. So there still is an opportunity here, but this is a window that is closing. This isn't going to last forever. Airdrop farmers, I think, really have the next, I would say, 6 months to capitalize. And ideally, you would have started airdrop farming last year when I did my ultimate thread guides on airdrop farming. But if you didn't start then and you missed Arbitrum, it's okay. There are still opportunities, but you do have to be aware time is running out. And I think the same can be said for a few different sectors of the crypto space as well. So number 2 was Base. Let's get into number 3. This is the smallest one of today's video, but they may also do an airdrop. They have a working alpha mainnet, but they don't have a token. And typically that is a recipe for an airdrop if you interact with the protocol, and that is Manta Network, who are also an official show partner. Manta Network is a multi-modular ecosystem for ZK applications. They have Manta Atlantic and they have Manta Pacific. Manta Atlantic is essentially the fastest ZK-L1 chain, which brings programmable identities and credentials to Web3 via ZK SBTs. And Manta Pacific is a unique layer 2 ecosystem for EVM native ZK applications, which provides a scalable and inexpensive gas fee environment for ZK applications to deploy simply using Solidity. So as you can see here, they are a modular ecosystem. You've got Manta Atlantic L1 on the left, which facilitates ZK KYC, ZK payment, and ZK SBT. And then you have Manta Pacific EVM, which facilitates ZK DeFi, NFT, bridge, and gaming as well. And that stacks on top of Celestia. So they're using a modular design to enhance composability, and I think it's a very well thought through and smart structure. Now, in terms of Manta, they do have quite a large valuation as well. So although I said they're one of the smallest in this video, they're also relatively large. They raised $25 million at a $500 million valuation, and they had lead investors Polychain Capital, 7X, Alliance DAO, Coin Fund, and Coiming Venture Partners as lead investors in their Series A, and they also had other seed and funding rounds from the likes of Polychain Capital, Multicoin Capital, etc., who all invested. So a fairly large list of VCs, which comprise a decent valuation at $500 million. So it's definitely not a tiny one by any means. Manta Pacific, which is their new EVM chain, has just recently launched, and this comes with new opportunities for airdrop farmers and incentive farmers. Now, one thing you can take part in that is obvious right now is the Manta Fest Galaxy campaign, and this is essentially a way for people to earn NFTs and points in exchange for completing a variety of tasks. Now, this could definitely be a requirement for a potential airdrop, and it will get your cumulative volume up because a lot of the requirements here require you to do things like, use their native bridge, using some of their top dApps, and that is going to get transaction and bridge volume up. So if you participate in this campaign, which is running from Thursday, September 28th, all the way to November 7th, so you have about 1 month to go, you could win NFTs and points. I've left a link in the description if you do want access to the Manta Galaxy campaign. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is choose dApps manually yourself. So you can go into DeFi Llama, or you can go into Manta's Twitter and look at some of the dApps that are deploying, and you can simply organically interact with those dApps. Because they're on mainnet now, it does open up a new window of opportunity for interaction versus testnet airdrops, which are typically smaller. So if you don't know the distinction, testnet airdrops are using like fake money. Typically these are rewarded in smaller quantities because there's no real stakes at play, whereas mainnet airdrops, typically they reward higher, but they do require you to pay, real gas fees and use real assets. So it does come with more of a cost, but typically mainnet airdrops are bigger. Of course, we can also look forward to the launch of Manta's Atlantic L1 as well, which is coming. So lots to look forward to in terms of Manta, and I've left a link in the description if you want to go check out their Galaxy campaign and complete some of the requirements there. Okay, I've got 2 more airdrops to talk about today, and these are 2 massive ones. 2 huge ones. I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but if you're an airdrop farmer and you're not farming these ones, what are you doing? The first one is Layer 0. It's the one I've talked about so many times on my Twitter and YouTube, so I don't want to bore you, but essentially Layer 0 is an omni-chain interoperability solution designed to connect multiple chains. It's one of the most innovative interoperability solutions that we've seen coming to market, and we all know how much of a problem this is. We need multiple chains to be able to interact with each other. Bridging assets up until today has been extremely difficult, and we need bona fide solutions in this space. And I think Layer 0, it's going to cause an absolute stir. Of course, they've already launched and there's many Layer 0 protocols, but once their token launches and they continue to flesh out the technology, I think it's going to open up massive doors for crypto usage in the future, and I'm very bullish on Layer 0 as a protocol. Now, they raised $120 million at a $3 billion valuation. Huge investors, Circle, even Christie's Auction, Sequoia Capital, A16, Samsung, OpenSea, the biggest investors, the biggest VCs are all on the cap table at a huge $3 billion valuation. If I had to value Layer 0 today, it would be even higher than $3 billion. Binance recently added it to their website, so did CoinGecko. We know a token's coming. I think it's going to be coming in either December, but I think maybe more likely is Q1 2024, which means your window to farm an airdrop here is closing. If not, the door's almost shut on this one. If you look at Arbitrum as an example, they did their airdrop in April, and they closed the gate to that airdrop in February. So there was a 2-month gap between the closure of the snapshot and the launch of the token. If layer 0 is similar, and let's say it launches in January, then November would be your cutoff for a snapshot, if we use that as a precedent. So you only really have a month or two here left to farm layer 0. But then there is another school of thought, which is basically, look, they're not going to want to do a massive airdrop up front and price everyone out. They want to incentivize users that come a little bit late. You can't just reward all the early users, because then the genuine users of the network, once the token launches, they aren't rewarded. So similar to Optimism, I expect this to be in tranches, which means there'll be airdrops later down the track as well. So if you are getting in now, you haven't completely missed out by any means. However, the first airdrop's usually the biggest one, and this is one that you probably still want to qualify for. So I don't believe the door's completely closed, but I'm just guessing. All we can do is use guesstimates in this space. Airdrops aren't a complete science. So if I say I don't think it's closed and it's closed, well, I may be wrong, because I don't know when the snapshot is, or that would ruin the game. But I do believe percentage probability-wise, there is still an airdrop on the table here. If you want to complete the airdrop, I've done a video in the past. I'll link it in the description if you do want to watch that video, but I'll quickly summarize. Use the dApps like Stargate. That's obviously their primary dApp. Use Radiant Capital as well. That's another one of their primary dApps. Use Liquid Swap by Pontum Network. Use their bridges like the Aptos bridge. And you can also do a strategy which kills two birds with one stone. And this is essentially using applications that interact with layer 0, but also interact with underlying protocols that may do an airdrop. So you can essentially kill two birds with one stone. There's a list here that CC2 posted. By the way, his content is amazing. I highly recommend you follow him on Twitter. And this will basically allow you to qualify for things like ZK Sync and layer 0 if you use dApps that are across both of the ecosystems. So this is a strategy you can use when you are creating your checklists. Make sure to try and get as many crossovers as possible. So when you're picking a DEX, right, to do swaps on to get transaction volume up on, let's say, layer 0, also pick one that maybe has a deployment on Coinbase, let's say, or also has a deployment on Linear. You want to spend the least possible amount of time airdrop farming for the maximum possible reward. Because airdrop farming doesn't have a huge dollar cost attached, but it does have a huge time cost attached, you want to make sure your time is most efficient as possible, because at the end of the day, time is money, right? You don't want to spend ages. You don't spend 3 times the amount of time that it really should take on airdrop farming when you could reduce that amount of time via farming more efficiently. So just keep that in mind. And once again, shout out to CC2, the best airdrop farmer on crypto Twitter, who is also top 8 on the layer 0 leaderboard in a public wallet. So totally not LARPing, properly big airdrop farmer, and posts amazing content. And a lot of the ideas from today's video I've gotten from him as well. Now, my final one, my airdrop number 5 for today is Starknet. This is a behemoth, and look, you may have missed this, but the $8 billion valuation just has my full attention. They raised $282.5 million at an 8 bill valuation. It's absolutely insane, and we know how much investment's gone into this. We know the backers are huge, and this is one I'm very excited for. Now, in terms of getting an airdrop, I won't bore you. You pretty much get the gist by now at this point in the video. Interact with the protocols on the ecosystem. You can use their mainnet, which is now launched with $40 million TVL. So there's a bunch of applications like you can see in front of you. Genuinely interact, get involved, join their Discord, do all the stuff you would do for the previous ones I talked about. And although the window is closing on this one as well, I mentioned before that it may already be closed. It's in a similar camp to layer 0, where the risk reward is probably just still to interact with it. I mean, if you haven't already, and I know we've been talking about this one for over a year, and I posted on my Twitter last year, I would still look into Starknet as a potential airdrop that is definitely worth going for. So those are the 5. Let me know in the comments if I've missed any that you would like me to cover in the future, but I wanted to bring to you the 5 that I'm genuinely looking at as potentially big airdrops for 2024, and these are the 5 with some of the biggest backing in the market that I believe can make a splash. And as I said, I'm prioritizing the big airdrops. I'm not wasting time on the small airdrops, although I'm sure there are many niche opportunities. I think just from a time perspective, for me, it's just worth prioritizing the absolutely big ones. If you have more time, obviously I'm not a full-time airdrop farmer, but if you have more time, then I would recommend obviously digging way more into these ecosystems. But you know, we all have a life. Most of you have full-time jobs. I'm full-time in the Web3 space. I don't have time to sit down and airdrop farm all day. Although I believe I'd make a lot of money doing so, I have to factor in opportunity cost. And for everyone, that looks a little different. So hope you enjoyed today's video. I will see you in the next one on Sunday, which will be a rapid alpha summarizing the main stories of the week. And until then, I hope you have a lovely day. Peace out.